Do you suspect your ancestor changed his or her name? Well, it happens. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 strategies to sort out their real identity. Hey there, I'm Lisa Lisson, a genealogy expert with 15 years of experience helping people find their ancestors. On this YouTube channel, I share my best strategies, tools, and tips for uncovering your family history without the overwhelm. Well, let's talk about those ancestors who changed their names because, well, it happened. They did change their names at times. But why? Why did they change their name? Well, changing a name for one of our ancestors would have been much easier than it is today. They simply stopped using the name they didn't like or weren't going to use anymore and simply started using the name they chose. So there was not a legal proceeding they needed to necessarily go through. There wasn't all of the stuff tied to their legal name as we have today. It was really quite easy, relatively speaking. So why would they have done it? Well, one of the most basic reasons that I actually came across in my own family tree was, well, my ancestor just didn't like his name. I don't really know why. Nobody seems to know, but that's what the oral history said. That's what the family said. So he just stopped being Johnny one day and became Henry. Who knew? So another reason they may have changed their names is because they were tired of being confused with another person of the same name. After all, my name is Lisa, a very common name for women of my generation. I mean, really, do you know how many Lisas there were what I went to school with? And then another reason that they may have changed their name or changed their identity is because, well, they needed to. Perhaps your ancestor was living on the wrong side of the law or just skirting it, who knows. But they, for whatever reason, wanted to leave their current life and change their name and become somebody else. There could have been a variety of reasons for that, but oftentimes, they needed to disappear or they needed to get out of a situation. Well, they just changed their names and moved on. Those are particularly difficult to track down. I will be honest with you. Those are some of the toughest genealogy research problems I have, but well, I do have some few tips and strategies for you, so stick around here. But whatever the reason they changed their name, it did happen. It wasn't difficult to do. And we're likely not ever going to find an actual record that states that name change. Researchers have to put together the clues. Now, I'm going to walk you through how I solved this tricky name change issue in my own genealogy research. And in a future video, I will be sharing with you step by step how to create your own research plan for something like this in using Google Sheets. And if you have ever encountered a name change in your own family tree research, be sure and hit that like button and let me know. I'm curious just how common this actually is. Now, for this tricky name change and research that I was working on, we're going to be using my great-great-grandfather, William Haley, as our example. Now, this is William and his wife, Clara Holt. This was taken around their wedding time period in 1883. Now, the tricky thing with Williams is that once I had gotten that oral history for him, I actually then went ahead and pulled out that death certificate for him and his marriage record. And this is that second strategy that we want to know. We've got the oral history. So using oral history is important. That's if we can get that. I recognize not everybody can do that, but when you can, it's crucial that you make sure you are using those resources as well. But next, it was important to go back to my basics, back to my genealogy research roots, as I like to say, those basic records, the birth, the marriage, the death records, census records, those types of records, to make sure we've gathered all the clues and can really track any name changes that we are seeing, clues to those name changes. So for William, what I needed to do was to get a copy of his death certificate and his marriage record, because he was born in 1861, so I wasn't looking for a birth certificate since it wasn't actually being created then. But I knew that on the death certificate and on the marriage record, it should mention his parents' names. I was really hoping, at the end of the day, that was going to be a really quick win for me, was to figure out, who his father was, and that would be it. The problem was, in searching for his father, I discovered a probable name change or name shift for him. So I needed to get the records. Now, I knew the date that he had died because I knew the family well. My grandmother had all the information, things about like births and marriages and deaths, but she didn't have some of those older details that I needed, such as who his father was. And so, of course, she had absolutely no idea about a probable name change or a different name. So I went ahead and I ordered his death certificate, and then I also ordered the marriage and was able to find the marriage registration record. So on that death certificate, where it stated who his parents were, it had been written Case Haley. Let me pull my pointer up here. So Case, and this is how it was spelled, Kays Haley, and Ann Triple. So this was an interesting thing. I really didn't know who these were. It was a son-in-law who provided this information. I thought, okay, should be pretty close, but I'm not recognizing any of these names, and nothing's matching. And this Kay's name, I didn't know if it was Case. I couldn't figure out who this was. I've never seen this name out there, and thought, all right, well, make note of it. Let's move on to the next record, because I really couldn't pull anything else there. So I did look at the marriage registration, and this was actually pretty helpful to me because it stated that his parents were S.C. Haley and M.A. Haley. So it did use these initials, but I thought, okay, this is helpful and another piece of information, but I'm still not really sure who Hayes and is, and how does S.C. Haley and Case Haley, how does this fit in? How does this the same person? M.A. I'm kind of wondering, could this be Ann? Again, I'm pulling that, so I pulled those, I got that information, and again, one more clue for me to put to the timetable. So once I finished with the death and the marriage records, I actually went into the census records. Now this is really where I started to pull some things together. Again, it's little clues here and there, guys. This is not fast research. So what I have here is I've got the 1860 census from Halifax County, Virginia. Here's a close-up of it. And what you're going to see here is Stephen Haley. He's 21 years old. He's still in his parents' household, actually. Jesse Haley was his father. Tempe was his mother. And he's 21 years old. Now, remember, William was not born until 1861, so William is actually not in the census record. And when I turn the page, as you can see, Stephen is the bottom. I will tell you, I don't have a slide for this, but when I turn the page, there are several families with the surname of Tribble, Tribble. Tribble, that's interesting, because remember, in the oral history, my grandmother's cousin said we're somehow related to the Tribbles. I don't know how. Okay, well, that's a clue, right? So I came forward with this because I was trying to figure out the Stephen, again, he's Stephen C. Haley. I think this almost looks more like a T to me, but I'm feeling pretty confident I've still got the right guy here. So I came into the 1870 census. Now at this point, remember, William, my guy, should be 9-year-old little boy, right? So here's a close-up of it right here. This is the family right here. This is Stephen Haley. So again, Stephen Haley, Mary, okay. M.A. Haley was the mother on the marriage certificate, so that works. We have George, Ellen, and John. Well, now George is 9 years old, and William should be a 9-year-old little boy, but William's not in this family. And so I'm really confused at this point because I can't quite figure out where he would be. Now, there is no other William Haley in the right time period, or in the 1870 census, certainly not anywhere close to being the right age. So at this point, I really can't find William in the 1870 census. I can only find George, who is a 9-year-old little boy. And when I researched George out, you'll see I actually still don't even know who George was. I'd never heard of him. I do want to make note, the neighbors here, Tribbles, once again, here are some Tribbles right here. This turns out to be just future research, just to tell you, Tribble, Matthew Tribble turns out to be Mary Haley's father. So these are Stephen Haley's in-laws. So again, that Tribble name. So again, we know that they're related. This is helping. So come on forward to the 1880 census. Now at this point, my guy should be 19 years old, right? About 19 years old. So here we have Stephen Haley. The problem is, I can't find William Haley anywhere in the 18 federal census. And that's unfortunate. I do find Stephen Haley here. There's no George, there's no William. And at 18, he should be out of the house, right? George Haley is found living in the household of James Guthrie, who is a farmer. He's working as a laborer in somebody else's farm. And he is listed as George W. Haley. So that does make me wonder, is he George William or is he William? Again, I'm not sure exactly who he is, but I do think that perhaps this could be George William Haley. So I'm suspicious now that George W. Haley is actually George William Haley, and he's going by his middle name at this point. So by this point, I'm really strongly suspecting that George Haley is truly William Haley. Was it a name change, or is William going by a middle name? I'm not 100% sure. But I'm pretty sure that George is actually William, or William is actually George. I just still don't have quite the proof. So I checked out the local resource on this family. And this is the next strategy that I want you to make sure you're incorporating in your genealogy research. I want you to make sure that you are seeking out local historical context and sources. That's newspapers, that's written history, locally published books. You want to be sure you are checking these out. And I did just that. I actually was able to find a copy of the Halifax County, Virginia Heritage book that was put together by the Historical Society. And I found a write-up on Stephen C. Haley in there. Now, remember, Stephen C. Haley keeps kind of showing up close to William, and as the father of George, but I can't get William and SC to match. But that locally written up commentary on the Haley family stated that Stephen C. Haley, he was actually Stephen Caswell Haley. Caswell being his middle name. His wife was Mary Ann Tribble, and he oftentimes went by the name Cas. So by grabbing that oral history, by really digging deep into the original records, those basic genealogy records, but getting those original records so that I could get all of the information from them, and tapping into local resources, William is George. William Haley is the same person as George Haley. Now, was he originally called George, and then if somewhere along the way decided he wanted to be known as William? I'm not 100% sure, or for whatever reason were they documenting him on his first name when he actually was called within the family by his middle name. I'm not really sure. But I do know from 1883 forward, George Haley was known as Will Haley. Now, this is not fast research, guys. This took me months and months to actually complete this particular piece of research. And I will tell you that I use timelines because I do find creating a timeline for a real tricky ancestor like this, particularly those name changes, can be very helpful. And you can learn how to create your own timeline using a Google Sheets in this video. Create your genealogy timeline using Google Sheets. It's on your screen now.